to give things a go, regardless what's happening and regardless of what's going on around you, to be your best self and to give everything a bash, as they say in Scotland. Give it a bash, give it a try, and see where it takes you.
Welcome to another episode of Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, and today it's my fifth international guest. So we've got Kevin all the way from Australia. Now, Megan, who was another guest of ours, the social media queen, she introduced us, and I'm so excited. So when I read his introduction, his bio, there's so many stories that I'd like to get into with Kevin. But before we do that, I'd like him to introduce himself, because I'm sure he'll do a good job of that. So without further ado, hi, Kevin.
Hi, Babak. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, wonderful.
Good,
nice to chat to people on the other side of the world.
Yeah, and thank you for giving up your time. I know you're in the evening now. We're in the morning, so thank you. I hope you've got enough energy to share still some wisdom and some light with us. So
definitely.
Just hand over the microphone to you, so if you can introduce yourself, and then we can roll into the conversation from there.
Yeah, no worries. Look, Babak, first of all, very, very grateful to be asked on. It's always nice to have a chat, albeit in this forum or in person. I'm always happy to meet interesting people, and I'm very grateful to Megan McNeil for obviously connecting the dots as well. So thanks to Megan if you're listening. So I'm Kevin Miller. Obviously, I hail from Scotland. I've been living in Perth, Western Australia for now just over 15 years. Very, very happy here. I'm married, beautiful wife Gail, got two lovely girls, Maisie and Etta. And I guess I would class myself as an entrepreneur. I come here, as I said, 15, 16 years ago with no real great plan, no real great intention. It was just a fresh start and not escaping anything as such. I was very happy in Scotland as well, but just looking to the sort of broaden my horizons a little bit. And after living here for that long, I don't know where the time goes, and I'm enjoying the ride. I'm enjoying the journey.
Brilliant. So something you said there, Kevin, when you moved from Scotland to Australia, you said there was no real plan. It was just, let's see what these new shores bring us, and what delights they'll show us. Now, when you start your journey in that way, there's a lot of people that are in a situation where we're still obviously in lockdown in the UK. There's still a lot of fear and maybe uncertainty as to where things are going, where things are panning. Sometimes human behavior dictates that we try and plan too much, and we overthink, and we think things should be a certain way. When sometimes if you just let go and let the universe guide your path, things can open up and doors can open that you may not have seen before. Now, from your experience, by not having a major plan, especially when it comes to life and business, etc., do you find that you're more open to new ideas and new opportunities because there isn't a big plan, and then you roll from there? Or do you think having a big plan before you start is a better way?
I mean, I can only speak from my own experience, but certainly I believe that planning is important. Don't get me wrong. When in a business context, planning is important, and I would definitely suggest doing that in terms of where you want to grow your business as such. But as a person, I believe that not having a plan can sometimes lead to a little bit more clarity, mental clarity, because you're not tied or you're not bogged down in other things. You're not going in one direction. And as you said, sometimes having that mental clarity and having those ideas and those opportunities, you're in a better position to grasp them. And don't get me wrong, I like to plan. I do plan certain aspects of things that we do with my children and things like that. But I also like the excitement of not having a plan. The excitement excites me. It excites me to see where the universe takes you and see what happens. And you've got to be open to that as well, I believe.
Yeah. And another interesting thing you mentioned, so when you started your first business, or the business that you grew into quite a big sort of venture. What do you think? A lot of people that start business, they said the first 4 years are the most critical or most important in terms of growing it or dying. So a lot of businesses die off within the first 4 years. And when you get past that stage, then you can almost be in a sort of infancy or middle stage of business in terms of, okay, what's the new plan or which way it's going. It's still so exciting at that stage still, because there's so many new options and new avenues to explore. Now, for you, what was your business journey in terms of when you went over to Australia, and how did you start and grow to a point where you said, actually, now I've got it to this point in terms of size and things, I want to venture into new avenues and new things that light me up more?
Yeah, I mean, my own journey in terms of business was very much, as I said before, I moved here with no great plan, and I am a worker. I like to work. I think from our part of the world in particular, I think it's ingrained in us that we should be working and that we're meant to work. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think having a good work ethic is important, and certainly it's something that I sort of have. And when I came here, albeit I never had a plan, but I did want to work. I did want to get working, establish some roots and establish myself in the country. And initially, my first job in Australia was actually doing a sales role, and that was working for a health club here. So I guess similar to your fitness first type idea in the UK. I came from a professional football background in Scotland prior to that. Was really my only ever job. Essentially, I was a professional footballer in Scotland, and then I came to the end of my contract there, and I had obviously the element of fitness and exercise, and I found myself in the gym environment, not knowing what to do, not knowing when to go. So I found myself in a sales role at a local health club, and at that point I could only actually work. We were dictated by the visa, so I could only work for 3 months at a time. In a specific job back then. So you had to, it was classed as a working holiday visa. So 3 months at a time, and then you had to change employers. So went to the gym, worked there for 3 months. That was my first job. I learned sales. I understood sales. I loved it. I loved the psychology of it. I just loved the challenge of it as well. Essentially just selling gym memberships, very, very basic stuff. But I learned so much. In those 3 months that really stood me in good stead for where I went from there. And obviously, I could only work there for 3 months, so I found myself in a situation where I had just learned some new skills. I really enjoyed learning the new skills, very useful skills that I still use to this day. And I moved into a completely different space, which was the trade environment. And I guess that was a complete change for me. So at the time, my brother-in-law, who's a carpenter, he was working doing timber flooring at that time, and I really just was looking for a job. And he said, "Look, why don't you come and work with me? You can start off doing the labouring and start learning the job." And yeah, I mean, it's a long story. So, but really, the sort of shorter version is that I learned that trade under the guidance of my brother-in-law at the time, from scratch, and I learned everything about that trade as far as how it works, what to do, what not to do, how to do things properly. Had an apprenticeship in that space, I guess. And then we grew that business ridiculously, overnight. Really, we started off on the tools. We had a team of 30 guys overnight. Because there was so much opportunity here, and there was having that sales and entrepreneurial mindset. I just could see the opportunities. I could see that they could be tied along to anything essentially. But at that time it was the trade environment, and so we grew the business. I learned it from scratch. We grew the business, had a large team of contractors, became basically the benchmark contracting team here in Perth. And then we grew it again to the point that we had the retail premises, and we had more than one retail premises. But that journey, so that 4 year, that from infancy and maturity and the growth phase and everything, it happened quite organically. It happened quite quickly. And to be honest, going back to the planning thing, we still to this day I still think about it, because we never had. I used to say to my business partner at the time, "Russell, what are we doing? If we don't know what we're doing, then we're just treading water. We're just doing it for the sake of doing it. What's the end goal here?" And albeit I never wrote anything down, we never had a business plan as such. I'm not one of those. I wasn't one of those business owners, I guess. But I could see the opportunity, and I knew there was a direction. And between the two of us, just in conversation, we just identified the opportunities and started taking it further. And it happened pretty quick. It happened pretty quickly. And it's on reflection, it's. It was very, very enjoyable. It was a fantastic thing. It was some fantastic stories that we, some great stuff. And you learn the learning. I mean, the learning, the things that you learn along the way. It's incredible.
And it's brilliant. Like you said, you're learning from scratch because you're completely open. Your eyes are open. Your ears are open to everything new. Someone, you'll probably recognize this yourself. When you've been in a trade or a skill set or an occupation for a while, sometimes you start missing certain things. And when someone new comes in, they'll start pointing things out to you and like, well, oh yeah, didn't really see that. And it's a brilliant time, especially if you're interested in it. If you're just doing, like you said, I think there's so much negative connotation to the word work, especially in
yes.
I don't know what it's like in Australia, but
yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree.
And like you said, I'm similar to you. My mindset has always been, I've done days, I've done months where I've worked sort of 8, 9 in the morning till 2 in the morning, continuous in 2 businesses and things like that. And because I never saw it as work, I just saw it as something that I enjoy that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I've now changed the word work in my own vocabulary to service. How do we give service? Because when we're giving service, which is in effect what we're doing by, exchanging our value with someone else's value, whether that be money or time, to try and help and support someone else on their journey, whatever that is, whatever skills we have. And I think that's the way the universe works, doesn't it? We all have a skill set. We all are good at something. And someone else who is not or doesn't want to be, we then exchange, time and money for our skill sets. And that's, in effect, the basics of business, isn't it? That's how that works. Yeah. So from that venture, you've now moved into sort of different direction, which is more about, I think, in terms of helping smaller business, helping entrepreneurs, being more using your experience and things. So what kind of things are you doing now?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, first of all, I just want to probably make it clear that I had that business for pretty much 15 years, 14 or 15 years. And again, I came to the end of that journey not having a plan. And that's the truth. I came to the end of that journey. I loved every second of it, don't get me wrong, but I came to the fortunate position. And I think I'm a grateful person, but certainly I came in the fortunate position where I had the things that most people would strive for. Not so much money and not so much the bigger, like the work-life balance and being able to take my kids to school and my phone, systemizing the business so that my phone's not ringing all the time, and just finding myself in a space where I needed stimulation again. I needed some sort of stimulation. And so that's really where the motivation came from. To step away from that business. I felt like I had done everything with it that I needed to do, that I could do, provided the service that I could in terms of the value I could give the people that I was training, in terms of staff, the stakeholders, the other people that I was dealing with on a daily basis. I felt like I'd given them everything that I could, and I needed new stimulation. And I found myself, again, as I said, without a plan. And I don't know if there's a pattern to this, because it seems like it's something that I keep doing, but I found myself with no plan. And I promised my wife, I said, look, I'm going to have, it kind of fell at the school holiday period. I said, I'm going to have 2 or 3 weeks off where I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to have time with the kids and the children and just do nothing for a couple of weeks. And again, as the entrepreneurial side, you get at your feet, you start thinking, right, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I couldn't rest really. And my wife, and I've always had, I guess, to sort of answer your question, like I've always had people seek me out for information. I've always had staff or friends or, Kevin, what do you think about this? And I always felt like I had a wisdom, a knowledge base, without being too, self-promoting, but I did feel like I had a knowledge base and a bit of wisdom that I could share with people. It's certainly in a business context. And I just found myself in this situation where I thought, well, I need to do something with it, because and I'm also of the opinion that if I don't, I might forget, So I'm also of the opinion that I feel I get a bit antsy, because I feel like if I don't use it, then I'll lose it, that old thing. So I found myself in that position where I was worried about losing it. and I wanted to help people, and I thought I have to share what I have. And then I moved into the, I guess what you'd class here as the business coaching space, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done, and just the conversations, again, looking for that stimulation. Meeting interesting people, talking to them about interesting things, their journey, their why, their challenges. Identifying how they can overcome their challenges, and opportunities as well. Obviously, identifying opportunities. And so I've been very fortunate. And in the space of about 3 weeks, I'd started another business, and I was, registered the domain name, did all the things that I'd learned to do previously, which I probably find easy, but some people starting up don't always understand, and it just overnight, I'm the type of person that once I'd make a decision, once I've decided upon it, then I kind of identify where it is that I need to talk to, and where it is I need to go, and who I need to see, and from that point on, I've never really looked back. It's just been it's been a bit crazy. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. So I've never really looked for work, if I'm honest. I've always had, and I think I've always had the work since I started this business. But I think that's just relationship based. I think that's just a matter of the message that you're articulating and what you can bring to the table. And I've identified the ones to talk to.
Yeah, and I've always believed it's intention. It's the intention that we come with our offering or our message. In terms of, if our intention is to try and help, try and support in the most meaningful way that we understand,
yes,
somehow we're always looked after. Like you said, in terms of when I started my business, I worked in corporate for 6 months, and then didn't like the politics of corporate organizations, in terms of about knowing people as opposed to working hard and things like this. So I thought, I'm going to leave that, and I set my own business. This was 22 years ago now. And in that journey, set up that business, had another one, then bought another one and closed that one, bought another one and sold that one. And so it's always been some kind of entrepreneur thing going on. And like you said, I think I've just got an or thought, coming from my background, and my dad had his own business, a lot of my family have their own business, etc. So it was almost like a given. And now moving forward, if I decided that, okay, that end of that venture is now, I don't think I'd ever look for a job. I'd look for another opportunity which I wanted to shape myself. I think that's, when you say maybe it's unemployable, it's a term. Yes, the term comes up here a lot, and I agree. But don't get me wrong. Albeit we're, as entrepreneurs or as people that look for, you are confident. Don't get me wrong. You are a confident person, but if I'm honest, and going back to what you said about the intent thing, right? So, I believe I've got value to provide people, based on previous experience, but I'm still, albeit, yes, I'm confident, but I'm still considering whether I'm going to be any good at it, and you could be in business for 30 years and move into something else and not know if you're actually going to be able to do what you say that is that you're going to do. But I have been through that. I've actually lived through that for the last few months, where I've been dealing with clients and, for all different levels as well, and finding myself thinking, well, what am I going to bring to the table for them? What is it that I'm actually going to be able to provide? And the conversation I've had myself with my wife, and the reason I'm mentioning it is because I think at the end of the day, if I go home and my intent's correct, and my intent is to help, and my intent is to improve, then I'm always going to be doing the right thing. And that's irrespective of whether I believe that I'm fantastic at what I do or not. I think that's the place to start from, and it's exactly what you said about the intent. And that's all walks of life as far as I'm concerned. That's how you should conduct yourself anyway. Yeah. And how do you deal with that? So that's quite an interesting point you just mentioned earlier, which is self-doubt. So, you could be in that position where you've got a wealth of experience under your belt and you want to try something new, and you may not have the specific experience for that, but 90% you can work it out, and then 10% you'll work out as you.
They call that winging it here. Winging it. It's an Australian term. Winging it.
I use that sparingly. For me, it's usually 60 to 70% and 30%. But how do you deal with that? Let's talk about the mental side of things. So where you question that, can I do this? Am I the imposter syndrome? Am I meant to be? Those things.
Yeah.
How do you? Is there any tools or tips that you may be able to share that maybe help people listening? Because it is real.
And I think first of all, being aware of it is important. Just actually acknowledging it. Acknowledging that. Yeah, okay, well that's how I'm feeling, but what am I going to do about it? That's I kind of have a process in my head where if I'm doing something that scares me or something that I have any element of doubt to it, and I've done a lot of scary things recently that I never thought I'd be doing. And I work through the process. I'm scared like everybody else, but I sort of say to myself, well, what's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? I'm going to go home. My wife's there. I've got 2 beautiful children. What have I got to lose? And for myself, that's the only way that I can probably articulate it, because you might not need to be confident, but you've got to give it a go. You've got to give it a go, because you'll never know otherwise. And I would just encourage people to, and I think that's partly why I enjoy what I'm doing. I encouraging people to give it a go, encouraging people to try something new, and the energy, and it's just a different dynamic, but we're not all made confident for everything that we do, but I would embrace the learning. I would embrace the learning process, and I would give it a go regardless.
And like you said, I think the learning process sometimes is the most exciting stage in terms of learning new things and picking up. And then I think you have to get to a point where you've learned enough to then say, actually, I can start moving. Sometimes there's a point where you can continue to learn, but you're not actually moving. You're not creating any action. You're not doing anything. And that can then become stifling. And the other thing is where you've not learned enough and you start rolling, and then you're just winging it, where you don't know. I think there is a fine line, but also it's something my dad used to say to me in terms of, if I had an idea or I talked to him about something, he said, if someone else has done it, why can't you? And
well, that's right.
Exactly. Isn't it? It's simplicity of human beings in terms of, if someone else can do it, why can't you? And it is so true. And in talking to younger people, I'll always try and instill in that in them to say, you're just a little bit behind someone else. So someone else moved further down the path, and someone else has obviously walked your walk, whatever you're planning to, or whatever you're thinking. Try and draw upon that, try and learn about that a little bit, but then you have to understand that the world hasn't seen you as an accountant. The world hasn't seen you as a shop owner. They've seen shop owners that sell clothes, but they've not seen you. And that's why you'll always be unique, and that's why you'll always have your own fingerprint on whatever you do, Yeah. And
I agree,
Yeah, and like you said, it is about instilling a bit of confidence, isn't it? It's about instilling some energy that they can continue to say, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. And that key word of adapting and adapting again and adapting again, as an entrepreneur, you'll know that. That's all we do, isn't it? We just learn and adapt, learn and adapt.
Evolve,
Yeah, exactly.
And talk it out as well. I think that's one thing that we have to learn to do better, is to talk out. If you have self-doubt, then talk it out with someone that you trust, and don't be scared to not be the person. Don't be scared to show a little bit of weakness. It's not weakness. It's just learning. It's just learning.
And I think it's vulnerability as well, isn't it? And I found that the more honest and authentic you are, and the more vulnerable you are, I think someone else on the other side that's genuinely willing to help sees that and wants to help you more because they're seeing you right?
Yeah, for sure.
And I know when you're younger, there's this whole mask that we wear, isn't it, in terms of being liked and showing that we know and not showing those things. I think as you get older, you'll probably agree with me, as you get older, you're more open to say, I don't know, and maybe I'll give that a try, or if I need help, I don't mind reaching out, because you know that it's come from a place of real, trying to learn and trying to understand something, not trying to be the man, like I'm the man, let me ask on and be the man, right? So
yeah, that's right.
So coming back to your early days, so I want to talk about young Kevin. Now,
yeah, I'm still young. I'm only 35.
I'm only 44, and I'm still considered young. So don't worry, you're way younger than me. So, growing up in your
I've got a beard right now. I've got a beard.
So, who do you think, first of all, inspired you most when you were younger, and what was your younger days like to inspire you to become an entrepreneur when you were older?
I mean, I think inspiration, it inspire my family essentially. I think that's one thing that I'm very grateful for, and I'm very fortunate for, is that I've always had a stable family home. We've always, as a family unit, we've always been very strong when I was growing up. My parents, yes, they maybe never had everything, but they certainly encouraged us to want more, and they encouraged us to try our best, and I think that's one thing that we have. Certainly Scots have, is that they're quite a determined bunch, and in the UK we're up against it a lot of the time, and I think that that's where my inspiration comes from. Wanting better than I had, wanting better than we had, and wanting more and wanting something different, and I think that's where it comes from my parents. I don't think it can come from anywhere else, because it happens subconsciously. I think being around those environments, and you might not remember the conversation, but there must have been things that were getting said to you at a younger age that have just been instilled in you, and certainly that's where I've sort of taken my inspiration from. Certainly my parents, and wanting more, just wanting more than we had. What was the other question, Bhavik? Sorry.
That's fine. And then, do you know you've stepped into an entrepreneurial journey in terms of you?
Yes.
Doing.
Yeah.
Where do you think that energy came from?
I mean, I can remember entrepreneurial things that I was doing in Scotland when I was young. At a very young age, and you'll remember, I'm sure. Like they used to do the play by mail, the football play by mail. Yeah. So I remember doing that as a kid, and I remember buying a big printer and setting it up myself via Championship Manager in Scotland. I don't know if you remember it. And I remember charging all my friends at school £1, for being involved in it and getting a trophy, and like trying and just creating a little business to earn money at school. And so it's always been in me. It's always been in me to do those things. Even the paper rounds, I would rather than have one paper round, I'd have 5, and I would. A 13-year-old, it's just, and it's hard to pinpoint where that comes from. I think there must be external influences, obviously, that can, there is influences around you that are obviously making you that way. I'm competitive, I'm determined, and I think that this football always helped with that, because I played at a competitive level. So I think that made me want to be as good as I can be, and make the cut and make the grade. But as far as where my entrepreneur sort of traits and things come from, I mean, probably my mum, to be honest, because she was always a bit of a chancer, as they would say in Scotland. It's a bit of a chancer, and maybe that's not in a bad way, in a nice way, but. So maybe she's, sort of saying, Kevin, I'll give it a shot, go and try this, Kevin, and see what happens, Kevin. And, I guess very similar to what you said, in that, what if somebody else has done it, then why can't you, or why not just give it a go? And those, I can't remember those conversations word for word, but I know that there would have been those conversations take place, encouragement. I think encouragement, and I think that was always around me. It was something I've been lucky to have. I've always had encouragement from my family, and I still do now, and I still do my own family, and it's so valuable, so valuable.
Mm-hmm. And it's so, like you said, and it's so important, especially when you're raising the next generation. So you're a dad with 2 younger children, and I've seen it as almost like our role. So when we were raised, like my parents are from India and Africa, so they were immigrants into the UK. So we were first generation born here. So they had a very immigrant mindset in terms of working hard, grafting, and making money last and taking opportunities. And I've been fortunate. My mom came from quite her granddad looked after. He was an entrepreneur as well, and my dad has always been an entrepreneur. So I've got that energy in me. But moving forward, I think it's our role as parents to be the best role models we can by the actions that we take. And we can say one thing, but it's how we live our lives, and that's what our kids see, right? So as a father, as a parent, what do you think inspires you most today to be the best version of yourself in whichever role you have?
I mean, I think I have to be, first of all, I want to be present for my children. I think that's something that I've learned as times went on. Certainly in the early days of business in particular, I was working a lot, I worked a lot. And as times went on, it's become more apparent to me how important it is to be present for my family and my children, more importantly, and doing the things that maybe my dad, for instance, never had the opportunity to, because he was always working. So that might just be dropping my kids off at school. That might be, taking them to, piano lessons after school, whatever it may be. And for me, that's one of the conscious things that I try to do in terms of my behavior, is that I make sure that I'm around for those things and for the milestones. And, that for me, that makes me feel better, but I think my kids will remember that in future. And I think the other sort of things is the encouragement. Again, I think just encouraging my children to be the best they can be, and to be kind. I find myself saying to them so often at the moment. I keep saying, they shout at each other and it gets I always find this word kind. I always seem to say, be kind to each other. Can you just be kind to each other? And I don't know where that comes from, but it's just those little things and just being a good person and good morals. And I just think kids pick that up. At that age, they're like sponges. And if you're being the best person you can be, and behaving properly and having good habits, then I think your children will do that as well. And that's what gives me the most enjoyment. That's what gives me the most pleasure is knowing and hoping that my kids turn out to be the best they can be.
And you played an important role in that. And I know. Yeah. I know even with my parents, I'm 44 years old, and my parents only live down the road from me, so they only live on the next street. And they're still such an important part of my life, even though I see my parents as real parents. I'll explain that. So my dad was a dad and my mom was a mom. My dad would not do certain things and stuff because of his dad. Whereas I'm being a dad, I still like meeting up with my friends. I still like to go party and enjoy the weekends, going out. But when I'm at home, I like being dad. And sometimes I'm like, okay, the responsibility of being a parent is huge in terms of bringing up the next generation, but I don't want to take it so seriously sometimes in terms of, we have a laugh and a joke, and especially my daughter's now, moving on to 15, it's more become like a friendship, and we can have a bit of banter and a bit of joke, and I love that. But then when, push comes to shove and you have to make a decision and a choice and be responsible, we do that. And I'm so glad I'm allowed to wear the different hats of a friend, of a brother, of a dad, of a partner, of one of the boys, whatever it is, and wear it without thinking, okay, because I'm a dad now, I have to throw my friend's hat off and I can't have any friends because now I'm a dad, or I'm a husband, so therefore I can't go out. My going out has to go, And I'm so glad that now it seems that we have so much more balance about, those type of things. Now, talking about, I know you've done a lot, and it seems like you've tread different paths, and I love that. That's why I love these conversations. I love talking to people that I've seen different opportunities, seen different ideas. Is there anything that you're proud of that no one knows about?
Oh, it's an interesting one. Proud of that. Look, if the first thing that springs to mind in a work environment, again, work being business, but the first thing that springs to mind probably is training one of the sales staff. I actually brought someone on off the tools, carpenter. Been a carpenter since day dot back in Scotland, and he actually moved here, and people who worked for us for a long time. So one thing that makes me proud is the change in him in terms of how much the training and the effort that I put into for him to learn to play a different part in the business and the success of it. That's one thing that makes me very proud in a business environment. And look, the second thing that makes me probably proud in a personal context is my family. And again, I think it's so important to have, I'm talking about my own family here in Australia, but it's so important to have a stable base, because that's what makes me proud, because that gives you the stability, but it gives you the confidence to be able to go and try new things, because you know that at the end of the day, as I said before, what's the worst that can happen? I'm still going to go home and see my lovely wife, and I'm still going to go home and see my children. And that's what makes me proud, because that does give me the luxury to be able to do some of the things that I'm doing. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of our relationship as a family.
And it's so important. And something you've just picked on and just lit me up inside in terms of when you said a good, strong foundation. So, when you say, you talk about relationships, so it's people around you, the energy, financially, all these things create your foundation, right? And when that's strong and stable, you don't have to panic about anything, right? So certain things you say, it's going to take a bit of time, let it take time, whatever it is, rather than making panic decisions. And I know I've been in that situation many, many years ago, over a decade ago, where financially I was not in a good place. And some of the decisions you make are with complete panic, you flip to think, okay, if that's going to bring a bit of money in, let me just do that, or let me just do that, let me just do that. And I learned so much from that. And I almost treat it like oxygen underwater. If you're swimming underwater, you start flapping, don't you, to try and get up. Because if someone puts an oxygen tank on your back, you can enjoy the water, you can swim, and you can see where you're going. And it's so important to have that foundation that, like you said, you can have the privilege of time, space, and choice to say, actually, how do I feel I'm going to be the best version of myself, or what kind of things can I try that maybe just let me give it a go, like you said, or actually I want to think about this even more because I know it'll make so much difference to other people. Now,
and having the encouragement, Babak, as well. Having the encouragement, having that someone in the corner fighting for you when you come home. It's important. It's so valuable. So valuable.
I agree. Now, something I want to shift the podcast a little bit. Now, in terms of, I want to do a quick fire 10 question round. Okay, so this is something new. That I brought in just to lighten the mood a little bit and just to see the real Kevin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 10 quick fire questions, and those questions are not relevant to anything. They're just ways you think. Just whatever answer comes up first, I just want you to answer with that. Even though a lot of the time, a lot of people have done this, it's like, it doesn't make any sense why the answer came up, but it's just a bit of fun.
Is it one word answers, or what is it?
No. You'll understand. So when you answer a question, just answer it the best way you can with whichever way you want to do, okay? And it's 10 questions. So let's go from here, okay? So we're going to start now.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. If you could be world famous for one day, what would it be for, and why?
I would be for being a good person, genuine person, and someone that's approachable and easy to deal with. And why would I want to be that way? Because that's the way that I am, and that's the way that I want to be remembered.
Perfect. If you could access a time machine, where would you go and why?
Oh, tough one. I'd like to go back to my childhood and actually see what type of person I was, and see what influences I was having around me that I'm not aware of now. But I'd like to go back and see that. I'd like to actually see how I've changed.
Because I'm sure we built in a lot of filters, and there's so many things we can't remember, or the way we'd like to be seen we remember, as opposed to the way it was.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite cuisine?
Indian food.
Brilliant.
Indian food.
You come down for dinner down ours anytime then.
Definitely. I'm just thinking that as I was saying that, I'm thinking, God, there's in Leeds where you are. I said it's probably some of the best curries around, probably, to be honest.
What was the last film you watched?
Oh God. I watched a film with the kids recently, and it was called Yes Day. Jennifer Garner and somebody else. The premise was mum and dad were a family of 4 kids, and the mum was being portrayed as, you know, a bit of a Nazi in the house, saying no to the kids all the time. Then they meet someone at school, and they talk about this thing, Yes Day. So for one day, the parents have to say yes to everything, and the kids get to. So my kids loved it. They thought it was absolutely hilarious.
What is your?
So we had a no day. We had a no day the day after.
I think it's more no days than yes days in our house, to be
fair. Yeah. Jeez.
What is your dream car?
Oh, dream car. That's a hard, tricky one, really. I don't. If I had to choose one, let's say a Lamborghini. A red one.
When I dance, I look like.
When I dance, I look like. Oh, when I dance, I look like I'm having fun.
If you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go and why?
At this moment in time, I would love to just come back to Scotland, to be honest, and see my family, you know, and see my parents, and just check in with them. They've had a hard time, as you guys have as well in England, and so at the moment, if I had to choose, that's where I'd like to go if the restrictions were lifted. Definitely back home.
If you could go, are you a morning or a night person?
Definitely a morning person. I'm an early riser. I'm a 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning riser. I like to exercise in the morning, and I love to get that out of my system and clear my head and start a day fresh, ready to take on the world.
Sounds similar to me. My first 2 hours of the day, from 5 to 7 in the morning, are the best time in terms of no one's awake. I just work on myself with new things. So yeah, I fully agree with that. Who is your favorite superhero and why?
Superhero. I'd have to say Superman. I'd have to say Superman because it's, first of all, I would love to fly. It'd be awesome. I could probably just fly to Scotland. You know, that's safe. That you could ask me another question. I could go somewhere else. But I'd Superman. Because I'd love to fly and have a dual identity as well. How cool would that be?
Yeah, and no airport security to get through either, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, as long as you've not got kryptonite, you'll be fine.
Yeah. And if you could write a book about your life, what would it be called?
Oh, good. I was thinking about writing a book at the moment. I was genuine. I told my wife, and I said I'm going to call it Business Bollocks. But that would be because I think there's a lot of business bollocks. But that's a different book to what you're asking. So if I was to write about my life, what would I write about? What would I call it? It would be something to do with. It'd have to have the word journey in it, and it'd have to have the word fun in it. Because at the moment I'm on a journey, and at the moment I'm having fun.
And what more could you ask for, right? It looks like the universe is giving you a good set of cards to play with here. So, yeah.
For now.
For now, yeah. And like you said, anything can change. But I've always believed, like my dad always said, if you have a positive mindset, you know, it doesn't matter what hurdle comes in front of you. And the word problem, if we switch it to the word puzzle, the brain will work out a solution always, as opposed.
Yeah, that's very wise. Right. Yeah.
Now, a couple more questions, Kevin, so that the listeners can get.
I enjoyed them; they were good.
Yeah, it was really fun, right? It just lightened the mood a little bit. Exactly.
It was good. Good.
And no other podcasts are going to ask you any of those things. So there you go. So something to remember. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah.
So just a couple more questions, so that listeners get a little bit of a deeper understanding about you and how you think.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to fast forward 100 years into the future, where you're in the last moments of your life. Now, you don't have enough energy to speak, but you have enough energy to write down 3 words. Now, these 3 words have helped you, and they've helped you all your life, and they resonated with you. And you hope by sharing them, they can help the other people that are listening. What would those 3 words be for you?
Family, be the first one. Fun, second one, and time. They would be the 3.
Yeah, Yeah. I can tell by just even this short time with you, though, they resonate deep with you. I can already tell. So, thank you for that.
And they go hand in hand as well.
Yeah.
You know, they go together. It's certainly family and fun, anyway.
Yeah, and obviously time is our most precious resource, right? So respect that as well. And this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and right now you're bigger than the world. So I've got a mic that's hooked up to 7.58 billion people on this planet. They can all they can all hear you. They're all listening. They're all awake. There's no language barrier, and they're all conscious. Now, if I handed this mic over to you for the next 30 seconds, what would your message be to the world?
It would be to give things a go. You know, regardless what's happening and regardless of what's going on around you, to be your best self and to give everything a bash, as they say in Scotland. Give it a bash, give it a try, and see where it takes you.
And that's the energy I get from you. And it seems like your whole life you've used that message on yourself, and by sharing it, like you said, you're sharing your insights. So thank you for that. Now, at this juncture, Kevin, I'd just like to thank you. Thank you so much for your authentic answers. Thank you for turning up in the world the way you do, and the way you share your light, and the way you help people locally to you, and obviously now internationally. I wish you all the best for everything you're doing. Hopefully we can then, like I said, come out of this pandemic, and I may even come over to Australia. So would love to sort of meet up and exchange ideas from there. And
yeah, for sure.
And if there's anything you need help and support with over this side, or anything, you know, in terms of your business and your journey, please just reach out to me, and I will do everything I can, or connect you with the people that may be able to help you better than I can. So thank you so much. Just before we go, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, look, I'm very grateful for the opportunity, Bhavik. I just love conversation. You know, I love chatting to people. I think that so much can be learned from conversation, and in this forum, it's, you know, albeit it's different with the whole Zoom thing, and we've had lockdown, but I love conversation, and I think it can lead to so many things, and that's why I do a lot of the things that I'm doing out with the business stuff, and I'm just enjoying it. I'm just enjoying it, and I've enjoyed having a chat with you. You know, it's been awesome. It's been good fun. Perfect.
Now, what I'll do is I'll put Kevin's details on the show notes. So if you want to reach out to him, if there's anything you'd like to share with him, or you'd like some help from him for anything, I'm sure he'll be happy to help anyone that's out there. And like I said, he's a similar person to me in terms of enjoying conversations and understanding the importance of, you know, good conversation with the right people to move our life forward and help each other. So again, Kevin, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Pleasure.
Giving that up today, especially now it's the evening, so you can go and enjoy the time with your wife, right? Thank you.
No worries, Bhavik. Thanks.
I was the host of this podcast, Bigger Than the Hustle, and I'm Bhavik Patel. And just a few thoughts to leave you with before we go. Big energy leads to big thoughts. Big thoughts lead to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, goodbye.
And if you are the pebble that is being dropped into the pond, what are the ripples that you want to spread out from you dropping into that pond across the world?